Hello, great thinkers. Welcome back to the Think Great Experience. I'm beyond excited today. I have been looking forward to connecting with Anita on this show because she is not only a friend, but somebody that I consider in the highest realms of professionalism and passion for what she does. Anita is the president and the CFO of New Market Bank and is also fourth generation in that bank. And if I'm not mistaken, you have a fifth generation, a family member that just started recently. So, Anita, if you don't mind, just telling us a little bit about your role at New Market Bank.
Gladly. Well, as the president of a small community bank, you get to do a lot of things. It doesn't just mean you sit in an office and think strategically about the business. You get involved with every aspect from changing light bulbs some days, picking up trash or shoveling the sidewalk, to doing the strategic plan and really leading the whole team. So on a typical day, I am going back and forth between assisting people in the loan department with new credit requests, to looking at our financial statements as the CFO role, to processing PPP loans right now, to listening to one of our team members tell me about their weekend. So I get to do a little bit of everything, which is never boring and always a different day.
So what I'm hearing is you could be locked in an office, but you've chosen to be in the trenches and even shoveling snow.
Did it last week.
Well, hopefully, if I'm looking outside and this is any indicator, it's going away, which is
I hope
awesome.
so too. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So how many locations do you have?
We have 3 locations right
Okay.
now in
All right.
Lakeville, Prior Lake, and Elko New Market. And
Okay.
Elko New Market is really where we started back in 1905.
And so leading the bank, you're making a decision to be out in the trenches with them, to get your hands dirty. And I've experienced a lot of leaders that may look at that type of work. And you even mentioned picking up, trash or whatever. And I used to do that at the media company too. Not that we were encouraging people to throw trash down, but I didn't just walk by it. And let me ask you this and I know you embrace leadership development for you and for your team. I know it's an important topic for you, but when you shovel snow or you pick up something that you see, you just don't walk by things. How important is it for leaders to take that mindset, you have that mindset and take those steps every day? What does that do for the team or for even your mindset?
Well, I think it's really important. It's something that I learned from my dad, quite honestly, and he learned from his dad, that you don't ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And I think that to the rest of them, if I don't look at it as a job beneath me, which it's not,
Right.
because I take pride in our business, that when I ask them to help out by doing the same thing, they can say, well, if she can do it, I could probably do it too.
That's right. I mean, what a great mindset to foster in the entire organization, that everybody just leaves it better than they found it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can achieve greatness without it. I think that too many people don't take initiative on stuff that could be easily done. And that eliminates, I know these are like words that are like nails on a chalkboard. It kind of eliminates when we see the president and CFO of a family-owned business doing those things. I think it eliminates the it's not my job mindset.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I believe that's so too.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. And when you talk about leading your people, and I know you had a very interesting answer to some of the things that you do in your role, and some of the things that you enjoy. Some of your favorite things might be, because of your accountant background, a complex spreadsheet.
Yes.
Which I've really never heard that one before, but I get where you're coming from, right? Like, I was in the film industry, so sometimes I get onto the graphic side and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let me just take a crack at this. But you also mentioned that one of your favorite things is leading your people. And I've had the opportunity to work with your team in our classes, our courses. Their appreciation for you as a leader is really unparalleled. They see it in you. I think that the leadership side of your role actually increases retention during these tough times. When you think about leadership and how you've embraced it, maybe even in the last few years, why is that so important? You have a bank, it's very regulated, it's very compliant. You didn't have to pursue leadership. It's not a checkbox item, right? You can have the title of president, but you put yourself through leadership development and you put many of your team members. Why is that so critical for achieving greatness?
Well, I think it really helped to enhance our culture. Quite honestly, for many years, HR, human resources, was the least favorite thing that I had to do with my job. Supervising, managing.
Yep.
And I was tired of constant problems. I felt like we had come through a recession that was hard, and it did put a lot of strain and stuff on people. And I just didn't think that our culture was where it needed to be. It felt not fun to really come into work. People were kind of complaining and stuff. Yeah. So it really inspired me going to the Lakeville Chamber to hear more about leadership, because it seemed like, geez, it doesn't have to be this way. Like HR, that's right. It doesn't have to be HR. It could be team, and it could be leading and not supervising. That's and right. I think by us investing in the leadership development aspect, it really has changed our culture. We really do have a team mindset. Of course, there are always going to still be small issues that come up, with HR related topics, but they are way fewer and far between. I feel like our team really is cohesive and has worked well together. And so to me, it meant everything. It meant not just enjoying my day from a CFO spreadsheet standpoint, but also
which is fun too. Which is fun.
People joke with me, but I'm telling you, it's
I know a lot of people that would agree. I know a lot of people that would agree with complex spreadsheets. Sign me up.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yep. But really now it's fun to see everybody come together, achieve some really larger goals that, quite honestly, the board even kind of didn't think was possible when we first set out to do them with our strategic plan, and to come together and have good attitudes and hear people laughing even during stressful times is
how great is that? Like, team morale is so critical.
Yes.
And we haven't even touched down on the pandemic yet, the last 12 months, but how has it been? You put yourself through leadership development. So you went through our 12-month course, which was awesome having you in there. I think that a lot of people feel that leadership makes sense for C-suite, right? CFOs, CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, all the C's. But you actually started to put people at different levels of leadership into our courses, started to get them developed as leaders. How has that impacted your ability to have high levels of success or greatness by having your people embrace leadership?
Well, it isn't just for C-level people. It is for everybody. And I do think by having other people go through it, we're all talking the same language, we're all being consistent with our message. When we talk strategic plan, everybody has kind of that mindset of leadership in the background. So we haven't been able to put everybody through everything. Just, it's hard when you're a bank and you have to be open with a certain amount of staff, but
you got to spread it out.
Got to spread it out. But I do think it has been really important to continue to get that message out. I mean, one thing that we always say is you don't have to be the senior person. Anybody can be a leader. And
that's right.
It from literally a part-time teller to all the way up to me. It doesn't really matter what your position is. It's all about how you treat other people and you act and the initiative you take. So,
and you mentioned culture earlier. You can feel the difference when people think and act like leaders.
Yes.
When I started at the media company, I was entry level. I had just gotten back into the post-production side of the film industry after being absent from it for 4 years to take care of Gina. But I could feel the culture wasn't as energetic as it should be, you know, and there was a lot of complaining when I started there. And as we started to develop people as leaders, just their attitudes changed, shifted, enhanced, you know, there's a lot of power in each word. We don't want to change anything. We want to enhance everything. So it was interesting to see this dynamic happen by planting these leadership seeds. Would it be fair to say that, you know, in the realm of, you know, these independent community banks, there is some competition for you out there. You're not the only one.
No.
But what if people are shopping around and saying, I got to find a community bank? Why New Market Bank? What about the people that attracts so many new people to you?
Well, I do think, I mean, everybody says, oh, customer service. Everybody can say customer service, right?
Yeah.
The difference is I do think that our culture has even enhanced our customer service, or at least that's what I hope and believe. Looking at customer surveys and stuff, as people come in, they really feel completely welcomed. They feel like we're family. It's that feeling that they get when they come in. That's more than just customer service. It's like, hey, these people actually like being here. They like working with each other. They like serving their customers. And to me, that really was our ultimate goal to be.
Oh, you can tell when the culture's off, and you can tell when it's on.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I don't think businesses invest enough in their own people. I mean, they all want to be number one to their clients, right? But I think they miss the boat sometimes that experience comes internally from their own people.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, when we did our larger strategic plan about 5 years ago, we're up for review or renewal of it. Our 5-year goals were to be the community bank, in capitals, in the communities we serve, and the place to work in the communities that we are in. And it feels like we've achieved that. I mean, I always have to continue to strive for it. Obviously, you can't get complacent, but it is nice to have your team come into your office. And we've recently hired a couple people, and I've had on separate occasions, people come in and just say, I'm so glad I'm here. And that to me is, well, it's a huge compliment to the whole team that we've achieved one of those goals that we set out to achieve 5 years ago.
Well, and let's talk about that for a second, because I think, you know, when we were discussing greatness, I know for you, having that strategic plan 5 years ago and accomplishing, what did you say, 95% of the goals in there, but it wasn't just the plan, and it wasn't just the goals. Your own board wasn't used to doing things that way. Right. How did you get them to start to see the light? You know, that you're in a very traditional conservative industry. Here's how we've always done it. Could be easy to say, right? Even though in the last few years, there's online banking, there's this, there's that, things have shifted a lot. So you really can't say that, well, here's how we've always done it and stay successful. But you had goals that you announced to the board 5 years out, which is tough for some people to envision. But what was that like to present it to the board? And maybe they didn't have the complete buy-in initially, and then you moved forward with it with your team, thinking and acting like leaders, and you accomplished so much of it.
I think they had the buy-in of the actual plan. I think it was more of, these are really lofty goals. Yeah. I don't know how you're possibly going to get them done. Like, I think it's too much. Like, it's going to be too hard. Yeah. And my response was, well, I didn't come up with this in a vacuum. It was our team that put it. That's right. You know, we put it, we agreed on it. We talked about it. And so that to me was like, you know, I'm not just the one like demanding that we achieve these. Like, people, we talked about it. We had several sessions and people were on board. And so I think I kind of was just like, well, this is the plan we came up with. And as the team started to actually achieve them, and I keep the board updated quarterly on our progress, it was like, wow, okay.
So to a certain extent, they moved from having buy-in on the plan to belief level as they started, you started to see the team accomplish it.
Yeah.
But how important was it that the goals that you set were done as a team, not just Anita's goals, the team goals?
It wouldn't have worked if it wasn't the team.
Yeah.
I think that's been part of issues with strategic plans in the past across not just our company.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I think, we've had plans where the officer team and stuff has been a part of, but I don't know that they had the feeling of complete buy-in like the team did when we put this in place. And so usually they sit on the shelf and, it's really easy when things get hectic to not talk about the strategic plan. And that's been something too, that every month we have a leadership meeting and we talk about it. It's it's the first topic in that monthly meeting. Yep. And no matter how crazy it is, we at least talk about it, even if maybe progress hasn't been made as much as we have wanted to on a specific action item.
Right.
It's still in the forefront. So,
well, you were striving for progress, not perfection, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then
and we have had to course correct at times, or we've added things or enhanced things along the way.
So let's just say that you had the buy-in from the board on the plan, but maybe they didn't fully believe it could be done just because of the loftiness of the goals. Did that kind of create that challenge mindset in you? Almost like, well, I'm going to, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you, where it makes you want to rally the team, right?
Yeah.
If they just said.
One comment was, what's your backup plan? I'm like, I don't have a backup plan. This is it. Like,
that's right.
It's because if I have a backup plan, then the team doesn't think that I have faith in them. Like,
that's right.
We're going to do it. So
I think when there's an exit plan, people exit. I think that there's a lot to be said about here's what we're going for.
Yeah.
If Newmarket Bank was an NFL team, there's not a backup plan to winning the Super Bowl. You either win or lose, right?
Right.
Right. So I love that mindset. Are you still setting new goals with your team then? As you accomplish some, are they then coming in and setting new goals, and especially setting them during the pandemic?
Yeah, and they definitely have changed, right? We need to get back into a strategic mindset for sure. Yeah. The last year has taken us of working on the business more into working in the business.
Yeah.
Because we had to. Like, there was just no other way to do it. The volume has gone through the roof in several departments. The government keeps throwing programs at us that we have to continuously implement. Implementing new technologies has been a huge, huge deal because of not having the same number of people coming into your locations and stuff. So,
well, not to mention, you have to understand the programs so in depth before you can actually talk to your clients about it.
That is, yeah. And it's really great when the government keeps changing the programs every other week.
This is what's crazy. Newmarket Bank has to be an expert in things that just came out.
Yeah.
And so let me ask you this then. There's a phrase that I picked up in the Marine Corps a long time ago: improvise, adapt, and overcome. How have you improvised, adapted, or overcome since the pandemic? Because now you have, we never had PPP before. So here's something new. You also have a mortgage, and you have a mortgage division. Mm-hmm. So you have a mortgage explosion that's happened. Mm-hmm. So unlike many businesses, you have stayed open. Mm-hmm. Your people have been coming in, and there is a high volume of work with unfamiliar protocols and procedures and stress. So in the last year, what tips do you have on improvising, adapting, overcoming? What are some best practices that you've done to keep your team together?
Well, I think first of all, has been all hands on deck. Literally people are helping out in areas that they may not be as well versed in, but the mortgage department needs help. So guess what, Sally, we really need you to help them scan things. Like,
that would have been a bad time for it's not my job.
Right. But I think one of the largest pieces that really helped us through was communication. Things changed, well, starting about a year ago right now.
Right.
Things were changing sometimes hourly, it felt like.
Yeah.
New information, and I'd send out an email in the morning and then find out something had changed by the afternoon, and like, okay, well, here you go again, sorry. So I started a daily update email to our
Okay.
entire team, waiting until the end of the day to try
Yeah.
and gather
Good
as
move.
much information. So I wasn't constantly overwhelming people, but I do think that that helped. As things started to kind of not change as much, I'd start to try and highlight like how much work the lenders had been doing on PPP, or the mortgage department,
Yep.
or our teller new account staff, because they were opening a ton of new accounts too. So it really was all aspects of the bank that were kind of exploding, and it was a little bit of a crisis mode. I mean, it was kind of like come in and all of a sudden it's 5 o'clock at night and you just kind of kept your head down and kept working while trying to still communicate and have that team atmosphere, even when times weren't feeling so great. You know, we still were in the office, and a lot of people were in the office and stuff. So it was kind of nice to still have some human interaction,
Yeah.
since, you know, you'd go home and you couldn't go anywhere afterwards. So
I can only imagine how important it was to have a team, not a group of employees, but a team of people who think like leaders when crisis hits.
yeah, if we had not gone, I truly believe if we have not gone through the leadership development stuff and constantly kept it as a reminder and been talking about it, I don't know that we could have accomplished all that we've accomplished in the last year. It would have been too late to start after it all
Yeah.
was blowing up,
That's right.
because we needed people to have trust in each other and me and the board. Um, and I feel like we did,
Yeah.
because we had done the work beforehand. So
I think that, you know, we've had so much feedback from so many of our clients that had their teams complete leadership development, then the pandemic hit, and we got information from them saying, you know, they're so much more prepared for navigating this chaos than if they hadn't gone through it. You know, I think that, you know, we're moving from this great obstacle, you know, so we've improvised, adapted, and overcome it, think great. And I like to say that there's three phases of this chaos: the great obstacle, so that was the pandemic and everything there, but now we're going into the great transition before we can get to the great new era. I think that transition phases are even harder than the actual obstacle. You know, I think that there tends to be less variables than beforehand. And everything happened so fast. I mean, can you touch, what was the impact of, just from your own perspective, all of a sudden there's this thing called PPP, and you're supposed to be experts in it, and everybody's supposed to qualify. There were really no guidelines. It was just and everybody was told you got to get it in quick. So can you just share a little bit about the impact of an unknown program? You know, yesterday it didn't exist, today it exists, and everybody, not just your clients, you had people from other banks, clients applying through you.
Yeah.
You know, what was that experience like?
Like nothing I've ever experienced before. We, we didn't have guidance. All of a sudden, there's this program. They kind of put out some loose rules, and then we were supposed to be taking applications starting on, I think it was April 3rd, which was a Friday. We had talked internally, like, okay, we're gonna maybe take like up to $5 million of applications. You know, like
Okay.
that seems like a lot, right? You know,
Sure.
$5 million, that's a 2 months worth of regular origination of
Okay.
loans. So by 10:30 Friday morning, 10:30 or 11 o'clock, we had already surpassed 5 million. And I'm like, okay. They're like, well, maybe we can go up to 10. Well, by the end of the day, we had 10. And it was just this constant, which is kind of crazy because actually we did a total of about 25 million, but it was that first couple weeks that really was like the large majority. And actually most of our loans on average were about 80 million or $80,000.
Okay.
So if you think about it, I mean, we did 360 loans, which is about 3 years worth of volume for us in a couple months time period.
So, you know, the traditional loans that you do, traditional mortgage, everything is very traditional in banking. Here's how we've done it. And not that that's bad, but all of a sudden, here's something that has to roll out fast.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any nights where you just sat up, just scratching your head saying, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring? I mean, the uncertainty, and that's just with one program, but
yeah,
what kept you up at night as a leader of a team going through, oh, okay, we're going to do 5 million, you end up doing 25 million. Okay. So here's all this work coming in with so much uncertainty attached to it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, Anita, people had to be freaking out when they were applying, right?
Freaking out. You gotta get it in right now. And I mean, we'd call people back, right? So that's about half of the loans that we did were not current customers. I think 48%, I think, of our loans were to non-customers, people we didn't have an established relationship with, but they couldn't get their bank to call them back. So, you know, I think there were things. First of all, I was worried about my people. There was during that time for those PPP loans, there was a group of 5 of us, team of 5 of us that really were doing most of that program. I had 3 lenders, myself as kind of the front operations CFO calculation, reading the rules, reading the change in the rules person, and then our loan ops person who was really on the back end, you know, trying to book all the loans, get the paperwork out to our lenders and stuff, and help on the reporting side, because there's reporting to the SBA and stuff that we have to do too. And then you've got the mortgage department also exploding at the same time. So you've got 2 teams of people who are working a ton of hours a week. I mean, our lenders actually got up one day, we couldn't get onto the system to get the loans put in because the SBA system kept shutting down. They actually got up at, like, set their alarms for 2 a.m. to put applications in, because it was the only time that the system wasn't so bogged down that they could, you know, get these things in for our customers. So
now, did they wake up the president for the 2 a.m. call, or did they just let you know they were doing that?
No, we had talked about it. We had a every other day meeting, like a 3 o'clock call that we started doing really right away, because things with the program were changing. So we had set up a call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and like every other day, so that we could just kind of say where we were at, you know, communicate what was going on and stuff. And so during one of those calls, they're like, we just can't do it, so this is what we're going to do. So long and short, there was a period of time that the money did run out. And there was about a week before Congress allocated more funds towards the project. And I remember looking at them and like, this Friday, just take off. I don't want you logged in.
Like, who do you call first to say the money's run out, right? Like,
well, I don't know that we had any customers that we had not at that point already told and approved. Like, when we were getting close, we were, you know, telling people we're not sure, you know, this, we could go in and the money could run out. So there wasn't anybody that we felt like had not been communicated to, you know, to know that we'll try, but we're not promising, kind of thing. And so, you know, obviously they were first on the list when the money reopened up, but yeah,
I mean,
that was kind of a nice week, actually. It was a little bit of a breather for us. So
yeah.
yeah,
I
but
mean, what I'm hearing is you have been able to build a team that not only has stayed together, become cohesive, maybe even tighter through the chaos.
mm-hmm.
But here's what baffles my mind. And I know people listening right now, I know they want to know how to pull this off.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have trouble getting their people to show up to work on time. You had people setting their alarms to wake up at 2 a.m. to get onto a system that was pretty much crashed by sheer volume.
Mm-hmm.
How great does it feel? You have a family business. What you do to a certain extent is expected, right? You have a family business. There's things like it would be weird if you didn't do certain things, but you go above and beyond the call of duty. How great is it to have a team that sets an alarm for 2 a.m.? How did that make you feel as a leader?
Proud. I mean, it was their idea, right? They were the ones who were like, we're going to do this. I would never ask them to get up at 2 a.m. to do it. So they were the ones who thought of it. And it was like, they're like, it just has to get done. I mean, we have to serve our customers.
Yeah.
And so I mean, yeah, happy. I guess I was, I don't know if proud's the right word, but just proud to be part of a team actually that cared that much and cares that much about the people that we're serving and stuff. So.
Because it would have been so easy to say, I'll try again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that one little degree that separates, good teams from great teams. And it seems like your team, and I can feel it when I go in, when I'm around your people, you can feel the energy. You can feel it all the time. So I know that this last year has been tough. It's been tough from a workload standpoint, probably even just an unknown standpoint. I think every leader has been challenged this last year to step up and be the leader their team needs. And I'm kind of big into identifying cliches and saying what they really mean. And I ask a lot of people what their favorite cliche is. And yours is, if it isn't hard, it isn't worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
So this last year, does it qualify as hard, as challenging? and how have you had to tap into that, maybe pre-COVID, but also during this whole time period?
Yeah, that's been my cliche for a long time. It probably actually started more back in like 2008, 2009, when we went through the Great Recession.
Sure.
We, just like several other banks, had issues that we needed to overcome. And the regulators were not always the easiest to have conversations with and to reason with. And I think a few of our meetings with regulators I looked at it as a challenge. The challenge was to overcome some of the obstacles that they were saying we probably never could, or getting past some of the requirements faster than they ever thought possible.
Right.
So when we were able to do that, took a couple years, but I look back and I'm like, we overcame things faster than what they thought was possible. Even probably, I don't think that they necessarily thought that we should even be around, not that we were a good bank and we did a lot of good things, but I think sometimes I honestly do think that there were times where you look at how many banks there were pre-recession to post-recession.
Right.
There were a lot of challenges that people had to overcome and they got tired. And instead of going through it, they just decided to try and sell because it was really hard.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't going to happen. This was, a family bank. I came from an accounting career that I enjoyed to come help run the business. And both between my dad and myself, we're very committed to staying in the communities that we serve. So I think back then is really when I started kind of saying, hey, it isn't hard. It was so much, we appreciated it more when we accomplished it because it was hard.
Right.
And I think my kids hate hearing I use that term a lot. But I think it's true. You know, you appreciate things more when they were difficult.
You do.
And then if it was handed to you.
Well, I think, you know, looking back in my boot camp days, it was 90 days of definitely challenging, definitely hard. But at the end of it, you felt like you earned something.
Yeah.
You know, if they had cut us slack, which they never asked us if we wanted a slack cut. They never asked us, would you like this easier today? But at the end, that feeling of accomplishment was so huge. I think that, you know, now you've got two major catastrophic events, the Great Recession and the worldwide pandemic, you know, kind of under your belt, you know, which I feel those moments in time sharpen our leadership blades. It really creates this forging where we become better leaders, sharper leaders. And it's not over yet. I mean, the pandemic, who would have thought, you know, we're a few days away from the 1 year anniversary. Not that we're going to start celebrating, and you know, we're not celebrating that anniversary, but I think it's ironic that almost a year to the date, we start moving into this transition phase, which could be more challenging.
I do think, yeah, I think when you're in the midst of something that is chaos, crisis, you know, your instinct takes over, the development, the training that you've had takes over. You just do, right?
Yeah.
You think through what's going to be the most efficient and effective process. You communicate with each other, you implement things, and you just kind of keep doing it. What I think is going to be the challenge, and what I see as the challenge, is to try and bring people out of that doing chaos crisis mode to really thinking strategically again. It's hard when you're in the midst of like working, you know, 12,
we almost
14-hour days to think strategically. And
we have to almost retrain them to get back into that zone.
Yep. And it's something that I thought we'd be kind of out of that crisis mode by now. But the volume hasn't cut down.
Yeah.
Which the longer it goes, the harder I think it's going to be to kind of refocus. But I keep bringing it up, so it's not going to be a surprise. I'm still giving people the leeway.
Those seeds. Yeah, you got to keep planting those seeds. That this is coming.
Yep, it's coming. Like, I haven't forgotten. You know, and you might not think I'm really telling the truth, but I just it's. I don't think I'll get the best self out of them until we're not working, you know, 12, 14-hour days, which is fine. We don't mind doing it because we're serving the people that we're serving, but at the same time, it's really hard to not think of like the task in front of you until you have a little time to breathe.
But I know communication with your team is so critical to you. I think it's critical to everybody during the pandemic or in the upcoming transition. But I think what you're doing that's brilliant is just planting those seeds that we're going to start to get back to this strategic mindset. Who would have thought a year ago that businesses would be having difficulty even bringing people back to work? And that's a reality for a lot. I mean, you service a lot of different clients. So, you know, you're probably hearing all the war stories out there. But that's an interesting, I think if COVID had come and gone in a month, it'd already be forgotten right now.
Yeah.
But the fact that people have been remote or distanced for a year, I mean, that's as long as some military deployments.
Yeah, and it's definitely changed how the workplace looks for different businesses. I mean, we have had some people working at home or working remotely at various times during the last year as well. And luckily we had put in place kind of flexible work relationship with a lot of our team. And people had laptops and stuff. So they're kind of used to working at home if they like had a sick kid, right? You know, it's like, okay, we're not going to make you take a day off if you can work at home, but you have to be there just to be there. In some cases. So we had kind of that flexible aspect to our work our team, and which has helped a lot,
Yeah.
I think, to implement it. But then, I look at my husband. He had started a new job in November of 2019, had barely like been there, right? I mean, and then was sent home, and he doesn't know when he'll get to go back into the office. And on top of it, his office is downtown Minneapolis, and so there's been all of the unrest besides.
Yeah, he
and
might not
so
be.
so it's kind of like you got the pandemic, but then there's the safety issue as well.
That's right.
And so, and
I
he's
think
an
that's an important.
extrovert, so he needs people.
Oh, I
Like,
know he is. I know he is.
So it's been a challenge sometimes, like during the week of this 2 weeks of quarantine, when we're trying to share an office, and he finally moved his stuff downstairs, because I'm like, it's difficult.
I may have to have Jeremy on the show at some point and get his thoughts on quarantining with you. But that you bring up a good point, though. It's not just the pandemic. That's been in our lives for a year, but during that year we had civil unrest. We've had an election year unlike anything we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And I know, speaking from a Minnesota standpoint, the state has tried to unsuccessfully transition out of the pandemic and then came back, transitioned out a little bit and then came back. All of those things are stressful to people. Whether it was the right move to do or not, it's just stressful. Yeah. And then on top of it, now we go into a transition phase where, just like you said, Jeremy's organization is going to do it different than yours. This one's going to do it different. That this state is different than this state. There's no commonality in all of this.
Right.
It's just confusion and more chaos, but we're transitioning back. And then there's people that don't even want to come back to work.
Well, and that's, yeah, we definitely have customers that, can't find workers. And I'm also on the Dakota Scott County Workforce Development Board. And that has been a big topic for our board, is that, you've got a ton of people who are unemployed, but you have a ton of businesses that have for hire,
sure,
jobs.
Yeah.
But they might not be the right jobs. The people don't want to do, or, during the unemployment, well, when you get extra unemployment, some people literally were making more than what they were making at their job. And so it was better to not.
So that's an interesting point too, because so with unemployment, they give you a little extra each week. And then when the opportunity is there to come back, people say, no, I'm going to stay on unemployment. So, I know, as a business coach, a lot of our clients had trouble finding people to come to work. So these are, I hate saying the term unprecedented times, but these are certainly unprecedented times. So I want to ask you about a leadership trait that I found interesting, that you chose this as one of your, key traits of a leader, and that's persistence. How important is that right now, and for us to teach our people about being persistent, especially going into this transition phase, which could last a year in and of itself,
Yeah, I think for me right now, I don't know if that would have been the one that I would have chosen 2 years ago, but I think after going through everything in the last year, and then knowing that we have to make that transition, people are tired.
They are. I know.
I'm tired. I'll be honest. I mean, there's days where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm just tired. But reminding myself, persistence is really important. It's important to the team that I'm part of. It's important to our customers. It's important to my family.
We got to stick with it.
Yeah.
We have to hang in there.
No, and you can obviously decrease the intensity a little bit as far as the number of hours being worked and stuff. But I think the persistence of not like just shutting down is a key thing that to me is really important to keep reminding myself of.
And I think when you identify traits that we want to see people exemplify, obviously we start with ourselves first, but these are traits we have to teach our people. We have to talk about being persistent. And it's an interesting one that you chose, because throughout my whole career as a coach, I've always used two words to teach people that, we live in a very, I always call it the fast food culture. We want things right now. This isn't fast enough. This isn't fast enough. This isn't fast enough. The transition won't be fast. But I've always taught people to be patiently persistent, because that patient part, we just don't know. We don't know the timeframes on this transition.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's coming. And even the PPP round 1 or round 2, there's still new news coming out about how it's all going to roll. Maybe it's taxed, maybe it's not. I mean, there's just some crazy stuff.
In Minnesota, it's taxed right now. So
I don't know, is it one of the few states where it's taxed?
Yeah, I think maybe 14. I think I was just on a couple legislative calls in the last week, and I believe that there's 14 states that still haven't set conformity. And it's something that I know, I think the Senate actually brought it forth last week, but it's still held up in committee in the House, and it could be a while.
So when something like that happens, when somebody hears out there that the PPP money may be taxed, are you guys getting flooded with calls?
We were when it was the IRS. What I'm fearful of right now is that people don't understand that Minnesota is different.
Yeah.
And they are going to be upset when they go to file their returns, because they thought that they heard that, that got fixed, which it did at the federal level.
At the federal level, yeah. But the state level, Minnesota wants a piece of the action.
Yep. Yeah. So that it's something that, like, the Independent Bankers Trade Association, a lot of the, obviously, Chamber of Commerce's and stuff, everybody is really lobbying for. The Minnesota Society of CPAs, I'm a member of that. They're lobbying for it. I mean, it's definitely something that everyone in the Minnesota legislature has heard about. So
I'm sure yeah. They're hearing about it.
Yes.
Let me ask you this, and you've mentioned a couple times throughout this discussion that you're on different boards. You have a lot on your plate. You lead a big team. You're in the middle of a pandemic. As we start to give some additional tips to people that are really going to go, you know what, I could do it the way Anita's doing it. Why have you chosen to dedicate so much of your time to being on boards? What does that do for you?
Well, probably a few things. First of all, I mean, some of the boards that I've been on for longer, like they're my peers. Like
you can run ideas by them.
Yeah.
Outside of that organization.
Right. So especially during all of this, like I look at the Independent Community Bankers of Minnesota. I've been on that board for several years, and we had weekly calls. It was probably the best hour
during the pandemic.
Okay. The board would do a Zoom call, and we would talk about everything. It was one of the best hours. I look forward to it every week because they were my peers, and we all had the same questions, and some people had figured something out that maybe I hadn't, or I could help somebody else out with something that they didn't know. And just to have other people going through the same thing that you were was so helpful. I think if I look at the other organizations I've been involved with, just having the outlet of the people that you get to know, whether that's in the same industry or not, is so, it's great. Like it's needed, actually.
I think people should, what I'm hearing is people should look into, maybe volunteering some of their time in a board just to have that peer-to-peer collaboration, especially during challenges.
Yeah, so there's definitely that aspect, right? But there's also a rewarding aspect of being on a board and helping to do something great for that charity or organization, being part of something different than just the business that you're kind of always, sometimes you get stuck, I think, when you're entrenched in just your own business. You think the same way, and by being part of something else, sometimes it triggers something and you're like, oh, you could do it. It could help you back in your own business, or it's just like, well, I feel really good that we just did this for for another person. You know, there's a feel good, maybe that seems selfish, but there's a feel good piece of it too.
But
So
yeah, okay. But I think that what a great way to be selfish. I'm going to be selfish.
yeah.
I feel good helping other people. I love
Yeah.
that. Of all the ways to be selfish. And I know one of the traits of the Marine Corps is unselfishness. I think you finally came up with a way to say it's okay to be selfish if we're giving back and making somebody else's life better. But let me ask you this. I really want to segue into this. You have done so much for our foundation. You've supported our foundation, the Think Great Foundation, and we award scholarships to military spouses, and you and your team and your bank have been sponsors of that. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. But you also give back to other foundations with time and money. How important is it for business leaders to give back to the community? And it's not required, right? But you do it often. And yes, it makes you feel good, but it also probably impacts your team too.
Yeah. So quite a while ago, it was somebody came to me and was like, let's wear jeans every Friday. Okay. Well, in banking, that's like a big, right? Like, ooh, jeans. Wow. Okay. So I'm like, how could we do this and still help the community? So we started this Give Back to the Community program, and we choose a charity each month. And the jeans are it was just a nice way of starting to actually do something.
Yeah.
We encourage our team to give us suggestions for charities that are near and dear to their hearts. And we choose a new charity each month of the year. And then the bank matches, what the community gives and what our team gives. And honestly, some of it is, I love learning about new charities, because I cannot believe how many charities are in our area, our local communities, the independent foundations or charities.
Yeah.
So that's been fun to get to know different organizations. I think it does make our team feel good that they can put a suggestion in, something that's important to them. And I think it's important to support. To me, it's a big deal. We should give back to the communities that we serve.
We've been able to hand out scholarships because of your jeans program. How great is that? Who would have thought?
There you go.
Well, okay. So I want to talk about a foundation that's really near and dear to your heart. And, you helped start this up because of an incident that happened. I'm going to jump forward to last February, right before the pandemic hit, and to help support this foundation. And I'm originally from California, so this seemed like a very odd thing to do. I did my first polar plunge, and I jumped in a frozen lake to help out an organization called Chase's Warrior Foundation. Now, this one is not just you supporting an organization. You're highly involved in this. Can you tell us a little bit about why this one means so much to you and what you do as a give back as a result of this funds and the efforts of others coming together?
Sure. So several years ago, a group of us, friends, neighbors, all decided we were going to take our kids on a spring break Disney cruise. And several of us gave this to our kids the Christmas before for their Christmas gift. And, it was going to be like the vacation of a lifetime, right? So we went, and unfortunately our neighbors who lived across the street from us, their 4-year-old at the time, my neighbor turned around to put her bag down, and he took off. And once they got down to the pool, and he fell in and nearly drowned. God willing, they resuscitated him, and they have had a long road, but Chase is still with us, and that's who the foundation is named in honor of. He suffered an noxious brain injury, is unable to walk or speak, but the Lickens, who are the parents of Chase, Chris and Lisa, had this amazing idea to give back to other kids that have special needs. They were fortunate. We, as neighbors and stuff. We did a large fundraiser for them to help out with a lot of their costs. Chris has had a good job. They've been able to get different adaptive equipment that has really benefited Chase. There's a lot of families out there, though, that with kids with different disabilities that can't afford adaptive equipment. So their idea was to form this foundation so that we could purchase adaptive equipment for kids with special needs. And that's what we've been doing for now the last several years.
And that's how you got a California guy to jump in a frozen lake.
Yes. So the Polar Plunge Special Olympics has been wonderful to partner with us for the last several years, and our team has grown.
It has.
I think last year we had like 140 to 150 jumpers. We're one of the largest teams in Minnesota, raised close to $50,000 or maybe even slightly over that. Just some people from Prior Lake who literally started it kind of like in a living room with a small idea and with large benefits. So, but the Polar Plunge has been great to partner with us. Unfortunately, this year with the pandemic, it didn't work to have a typical Polar Plunge, but we had done that for several years.
How old is Chase now?
Chase is 11.
11. And the adaptive equipment that you've supplied to families has gone outside of the United States too. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have had, we went international to provide, I believe it was an UPSI to a child in Mexico. So
how awesome is that?
Yeah, it was exciting.
Wow.
So we've done, so an UPSI allows a kid to be strapped to an adult and mimic walking so that they feel like you're walking. We've given trikes away, special adaptive trikes and special seats so that kids can sit upright.
What's the biggest challenge for you as a board member of the foundation for the Chase's Warrior Foundation? What's your biggest obstacle right now in regards to the equipment that you're trying to get out there to kids?
Well, we're starting to get more requests, but that has been one of our challenges, is to get people to apply. Yep. So I think, it's starting to pick up somewhat. I know the Lickens were in Gillette, like Chase was in Gillette's for a long time. So they have a relationship with people there, and they've been handing out our name at times and stuff, which is good. But yeah, that's kind of one of the larger challenges sometimes, is to get the requests in.
So if somebody is listening right now and they may know a family that has a need, where can they go to find out more info? You
can go to our website, chaseswarriorfoundation.org.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's interesting that, that incident that happened led to so many great things, that you guys turned that into something powerful for children that Chase may never meet, you may never meet, but there's certainly a lot more to giving back than even just meeting the people. Just being able to do something so awesome from something so tragic is so critical,
Yeah, Chris and Lisa are super inspirational. I mean, to really look at the situation and turn it into something positive. They could have just dwelt on the negative, and it was their wish to do something positive out of the situation. And I don't know if I would have been strong enough to be able to.
I was just thinking the same thing. The mindset that they have to have is, talk about persistence and talk about your cliche, right? If it isn't hard, it probably isn't worth doing it. I can't imagine, that happening to a child of mine, and then being able to come out so optimistic about helping other children. I mean, talk about amazing role models for us. Yeah. So let me ask you this. There's a lot of people listening. They know that the Think Great experience is all about moments of greatness and what you did to get there. You've done amazing things with your team. You've done amazing things for your clients, including shielding calls from people that needed information before it ever existed, and you've done great things in the community. If there's any key lessons that you could give to somebody saying, I want to head towards greatness in my life, what would be some advice you could give?
Well, I do think the leadership development focus is huge. I really believe it shifted my mindset,
Yeah.
and our team's mindset. And so, you know, investing in that is, I think, something that is necessary for a good culture, a good team
That
asset.
personal and professional development as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yes.
it's a smaller price to pay for development than to lose people.
Right. Well, I know when we started looking at leadership development, I mean, the board had been talking to me about like a career coach for myself.
Yeah.
And I went back and I said, I'd really like to take that money and spend it, yes, somewhat on myself by going through the leadership link,
Yeah.
but also on the team. And I'm glad that that is what they supported me in doing, because I feel like, yeah, it's good to work with a coach too. I've done it before.
Yeah.
It in earlier in my career, which actually I really needed at that time.
Sure.
But I'm really glad they supported it for
Well,
our
I am
team.
too. I am too,
Yeah,
because
I'm sure you are.
it was great to have you in the Leadership Link program. And I know that, it's kind of a consistent theme people are hearing about leadership each time we talk about the Think Great experience, right? That people have had these life enhancing moments where leadership helped guide them through challenges. Mm-hmm. But I'm glad they said yes, because I got to work with you, with your peers at a very unique table for 12 months, and just get to know your team members, that got to share their thoughts on leadership with their peers, from other companies. And I think that was huge. And I know goal setting is extremely important to you too. I would say that, one of the things I'm catching through all this is to stay focused on goals. Is that critical during these chaotic times or transition times? Should leaders out there listening saying, you know what, another thing Anita said, because I have a feeling I'm going to hear that. Another thing Anita mentioned is setting goals. Is that critical right now? Should people move goals to the forefront during chaos and challenge? Because I think a lot of people think, well, I'll just hold off on that.
Yeah, I think goals they can be as simple as just getting through the chaos, the challenge.
Yeah.
But I think having a greater goal is really important to continue to focus on. It's something that has been important to me. It's something that I've tried to introduce to, I mentor a few students through different programs.
Yeah.
And really trying to get them to focus on goals and like looking at the larger goal is great, but like shortening it up to the 90 days.
Those actionable goals, right?
Yes.
The ones we can take action on right now, those 90-day goals are huge.
Yep, they're huge. And so I think having goals, no matter how chaotic it is really important.
I mean, Anita, I think you have given our listeners so many valuable tidbits today. And can you also tell us how to find out more information on New Market Bank? Where can we go for that?
So our website is newmarketbank.com.
How easy is that?
How easy, right? We're also on social media too. So
I know people are going to look out for you. And also too, I can say with complete authority how awesome your culture is, because we shifted all of our accounts to you guys actually right before the pandemic. And thank goodness we did. Yeah. It was yes, you do have great teamwork, but that customer service is pretty awesome too. But you guys, you actually live out what you say. You have a family business. It feels like a family there. You have a team. They conduct themselves as a team. You give back to the communities. It's not lip service. You actually do it. I just, Anita, I'm honored to call you my friend. I was ecstatic that you were going to come on here, because I knew you had amazing insights to share. And I just want to thank you for taking some time, investing time on the Think Great experience to share your thoughts and give people some ideas on how to take those steps towards greatness. I think you're a phenomenal leader, and I think that you are doing amazing things, not just at your bank, but in the community too. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me on.